Senator Brown, thanks very much for joining us. You know, we're getting so close to the election. 3 debates now. The debates are over. The wrestling matches are over. You both came out of it maybe battered, a little bit bruised, but the state of the campaign, still leading in the polls, but it's still close. It is still incredibly hotly contested.
Yeah, I think the campaign to me is about the contrast you make on what matters in Northwest Ohio and what matters in our country. And my support with Senator Voinovich and actually working with presidents of both parties, President Bush in the fall of '08 and then President Obama in this winter of '09 on the auto rescue, made, I think, all the difference in the world in Northwest Ohio. We're seeing the transmission plant do better with GM and the engine plant Defiance that goes into the Chevy Cruze, and we're seeing obviously the new investment in Chrysler with the new model after they discontinue the Liberty, and what that means with the Wrangler and new jobs and hundreds of millions of dollars investment. And it really isn't just the auto assembly plant. It's obviously all the parts makers, Johnson Controls and Magna, and all that matter in this community. Let
me ask you about PAC money. You criticized Josh Mandel for having ties to outside PACs that have contributed a lot of money. Associated Press finds that you have ties to a super PAC that's contributed hundreds of thousands of dollars on your behalf, or at least coming in supporting you. How can you criticize one when the shoe's on the other foot too?
Well,
can't have it both ways.
It's a false equivalent. First of all, I have no ties to it. The person that is the lawyer, I believe, for this super PAC that was reported in the paper is worked in my office 25 years ago. But more importantly, it's a false equivalent because the super PACs in the outside groups have spent $30 million in attack ads against me. This one is about $300,000. So there's been so much outside money in my race, more than any in the country, any place. We figure it's money from Wall Street. We figure it's money from oil companies. We figure it's money from those companies that outsource jobs, that sort of specialize in China outsourcing. And that's because I stand up for the middle class. And those groups don't much like me. Oil companies don't much like me. Wall Street doesn't much like me because I fight for the middle class and have called them to task on their tax breaks and on their bonuses and all the kinds of things they've done, which I think run counter to middle class interests in this country.
I want to ask you about the presidential campaign as it relates to Senate campaigns. You've been able to get a little bit of traction on recent polling with basically a very similar message to the president's. Why hasn't he been able to gain the same kind of traction, at least in Ohio? He's actually lost some of that within the last couple of days.
I don't know. I expect the president will win Ohio, win re-election, in large part because of the auto rescue. And the candidates are on very, very clear opposite sides on that, as my opponent and I are. I think on the issue last fall on collective bargaining, which the president stood strong for collective bargaining rights, which I think is the ticket to the middle class in this country and has been for decades. And Governor Romney was on the other side, as my opponent was. So I think on a couple of really clear issues. And last, I'd say on Medicare. I mean, to me, I don't call Medicare an entitlement. I call it an investment. People pay into it their entire work lives and expect a guaranteed benefit when they retire. Governor Romney, my opponent, think that we should voucherize Medicare and turn it over to insurance companies, and I think that's a terrible mistake, as it would be a terrible mistake to privatize Social Security and turn it to Wall Street.
All right, Senator Brown. All right, my interview with Senator Sherrod Brown just a couple of days ago. Our Sean Haggerty catching up with challenger and state treasurer Josh Mandel.
Good morning, Lee. We're joined now by U.S. Senate candidate Josh Mandel on the Republican side. And Mr. Mandel, we want to ask you first. You've had 3 debates now with Senator Brown. Contentious in some points. Some people saying you might have lagged in some of those. How do you take some momentum from those debates now and try to turn it into a victory?
Well, we'd heard from nonpartisan folks that we actually won all 3 debates, and the media described Senator Brown as agitated and frustrated. And he did appear that way, I think, to the audience as well. I might be agitated and frustrated if I had his record. I mean, the guy's been running for political office since Richard Nixon was president. He's been in Washington for 2 decades, and he had to stand on his record during those debates, and it's a record of failure. Unfortunately, in Senator Brown's time in Washington, unemployment's gone up, healthcare costs have gone up, tuition has gone up. Foreclosure rates have gone up, and his time is up. And the only way we're going to change Washington is by changing the people we send there. On my website at jobs.joshmandel.com, we have an economic plan, a jobs plan to put people back to work right here in Northwest Ohio and throughout the entire state. And one of the main problems in Washington is that there's all this gridlock. You got the Democrats fighting with the Republicans, career politicians who might have gone there to do good but just stayed there to do well. And we need folks, I believe, who are willing to go to Washington to work in a bipartisan way, bring Democrats and Republicans together to move the ball down the field economically for the Toledo area and for the entire state.
What specifically will you do differently in Washington that Senator Brown doesn't do?
Well, one thing, I'll be bipartisan. Senator Brown ran on a campaign of being bipartisan, but he's just voted with his own political party 96% of the time. And that's unacceptable. We need leaders in Washington who will work across party lines to create better laws and also to create a better environment for job creation right here in Northwest Ohio. So one improvement I'll make is bringing more bipartisanship there.
So some of the polls have you down about 4 to 5 points here. What do you need to do in these last 72 hours basically to get those numbers back in your favor?
Well, some of the recent polling we've seen has us up 2 points, 45 to 43. Think about it for a second. When we started off this campaign, it was a David versus Goliath type fight. I mean, Sherrod Brown's been running for political office since Richard Nixon was president. He's been in Washington for 2 decades, and a lot of people didn't give us a shot, but we're doing it. We've gone from down 17 points to now up 2 points in the polls. And one of the reasons is that we have a good mix of Democrats, Republicans, and independents supporting my campaign, and that really separates us from his campaign. I mean, for anyone watching here today, I don't care if they're Democrats, Republicans, independents, libertarian, vegetarian, what have you. We've got it all in our campaign. We've got this strong mix, people from all race, religion, socioeconomic background. We got poor folks, wealthy folks, middle-class folks, blue-collar workers, secretaries, engineers, mechanics. We've got this great mix of Ohioans supporting our campaign because they're all bound together by one common theme. They want to change Washington. They think Washington is broken, and they understand the only way we're going to change Washington is by changing the people we send there.
You mentioned Senator Brown's experience. Do you think your political inexperience could hurt you?
Well, I'm proud to stand on experience. The kind of experience we need in Washington is folks who have success in the state of Ohio and in other states. We don't need career politicians who've been there for decades in Washington. Let me tell you about my experience. As the treasurer of the state, we've earned the highest rating on our bonds, the highest rating on our investments. Our portfolio is up over $2 billion since the day I took office. We've navigated the European sovereign debt crisis, not only without a loss, but actually with a yield on behalf of taxpayers, and did all that while voluntarily cutting our budget 2 years in a row. Imagine that kind of fiscal responsibility in Washington, where they haven't even passed a budget in over 3 years, and Social Security and Medicare are unfortunately on the brink of bankruptcy because of career politicians like Sherrod Brown and others in Washington who care more about their party than the people back here. A second piece of my experience that I think is important is my time in the legislature. I was a Republican representing a district that was 2-to-1 Democrat to Republican, and the only way I can get elected was with thousands of Democrats voting for me, putting my sign in their front yard, and volunteering.
All right, they have both had their say. Incumbent Sherrod Brown, Democrat challenger, Republican State Treasurer Josh Mandel. We urge everyone to vote if you already haven't taken part in early voting or absentee voting. And we will see you here all day and all night right here on 13 ABC Action News. Election Day, November 6th, just 2 days away. Have a super Sunday, everybody, and we'll see you next week on Conklin Company. Take care.